Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video we're going to look at a short story by Washington Irving called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. This is pretty well known. It's a short story. It was written around the middle of the 1800s. It takes place in upstate New York. The story is pretty simple. It's not very long. You can find it quite easily. I'll do the link to it in from the Project Gutenberg so you can get this for free. It's not a book. It is in fact a short story. I'm covering it because it's a Halloween classic. And again, it's a very short story. As a short story, it's very poetic. One of my favorite reviewers, Dom Noble, when he covers this in a slight comparison to the very strange, because of course it's very strange, film Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp, which has very, very little to do with this story, because again, this is a very short story. But he said, and I agree with it after reading it, it's the type of story you read out loud in front of a fire, because that's kind of the way it flows. It's very, very poetic. It starts off really describing upstate New York and this green glen that's what Sleepy Hollow is in this small little town, then goes on to describe our main character, which is this lanky little school teacher from Connecticut who comes up to teach in a one-room schoolhouse. And that is our main character, who is Ichabod Crane. He's very intelligent. He's educated. He's a school teacher of the day. He's coming up here to the middle of nowhere in upstate New York from Connecticut to teach in a one-room schoolhouse. He's very much liked by the women of the town. He's also the choir instructor at the church. He's a very much liked person, and it goes into the detail of him and his relationship with the townspeople. It also had previously gone into the town, into the little old ladies of the town like to tell scary stories, essentially. And they tell this story that the Glen is haunted by this headless horseman, which is probably the headless body of a Haitian soldier back from the Revolutionary War who lost his head to a cannon and supposedly runs down people. Now again, this is a ghost story, so it's not supposed to be real. It's one of those little legends you hear by the fireside in the dark of fall nights, and it's a scary story. So this is well known. It goes into detail talking about how these little old ladies are telling this story, and then it goes into the kind of background of Crane and how he's adapted to the town and he lives on his own, and then he becomes enamored with one of the only daughter of a very wealthy farmer, and he's in love with her. She has money. She's very beautiful. He teaches her to sing because that's what he does. He's a choir instructor for the church, so he has a beautiful voice. He's well trained. And he teaches her. She's this only child, so she will inherit her father's lands. And he's enamored with her, but so is I wouldn't say he's the bully of the town. He's arrogant. He's a hunter. I believe his name is Brom. He kind of goes around. He's the best equivalent I can think of the imagination is if you look at Disney's Beauty and the Beast, and this is Gaston would be his French equivalent. So that's who this guy is. He wants to court Katrina as well because, you know, she's the only daughter of a wealthy farmer. So she's going to inherit daddy's everything. So the basic, and then you have the crux of the story is both of them go to this party at her house. Ichabod tries to flirt with her, tries to approach her, and she won't have anything to do with him. He's a skinny, lanky school teacher. He's not appealing to a young girl. And he's slightly bullied by Brom. And then he leaves, and he's chased down by supposedly a headless horseman that a lot of people think is Brom. And next morning, he's disappeared, and all you see is basically all that's left is his hat and a scattered pumpkin. And the legend has it that he was carried off by this headless horseman. Now, as opposed to everything else that you see, the actual end of the tale is why the little old ladies hold to this, because it's a scary little tale. The reality seems to be that essentially Ichabod was dismissed by this girl. he was kind of upset about it. He left town. He went to New York, was a school teacher there, studied law, became a politician. So he passed the bar and then proceeded to become a politician, because they had somebody who came up from New York and said, oh yeah, we've seen this guy. He's off, married, he's become a politician. So that's the actual background of what actually happened, supposedly, to Ichabod Crane. But in this town, they hold true to their little tale where he was carried off by this headless horseman. So that is the basic tale. It's very short story of Sleepy Hollow. And I think Disney probably did it best, because they did a very basic story of Ichabod and being taken away, and makes this very creepy kind of little tale. It's a ghost story. It's a short little ghost story that you would tell by a campfire or at night. Yes, it would probably scare some children, except for when you realize, no, he just became a politician. So that might be scary as well. But it's a poetic little short story that's in the realm of scary tales. That's all it is. It's a classic. It reads very poetically. It's very beautiful to read, great to read aloud around Halloween. It's a classic Halloween tale. It's the reason even back then, it became popular around that time period, because it's about a guy who has a head of a pumpkin and all they see is jack-o'-lantern, and it's scary and it's spooky, and it's talking about a little town in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. And yes, it does specify where this is, of this little town. And it's fun. It's spooky, it's kind of scary, it's really good to read aloud again. It reads very, very poetically, and that's kind of the point of the story. It's not so much the tale itself, it's the reading of it. It's like poetry. It sounds best read aloud, and that's the type of tale this is. Again, it's a classic. I wouldn't recommend it to real little kids, particularly, or any kids that will scare easy, because it is kind of creepy. The middle schoolers might find it interesting. The older elementary school kids who like scary tales will enjoy this. Again, it's something to read at night around Halloween, or if you go camping or something. I don't do tent camping. I'm too old for that. I don't do tent camping. But it's the type of thing to read by a fire, or if you're during this time of year where you're outside and maybe you have one of those outdoor fireplaces, or basically it's something to read at night, even by candlelight or flashlight light, lantern light, and kind of a creepy little tale. Again, a great thing is one of those stories that does best read aloud, and it's an old classic. So that is Washington Irving's Sleepy Hollow. Great little short story. There's not much to it except for the poetry of it. Basic story. Man, little school teacher flirts with girl. Bully of town wants girl. Bully of town scares off girl. And yeah, it does kind of explain that. Where it's never exactly told, because Brom does end up marrying Katrina, I think the following year or something. And he will never fully admit it, but it's like, yeah, he scared him off because he was a competitor and he wanted the little school teacher to go away. And nobody really cared. That's the other thing the story mentions, like, oh, just another school teacher. He disappeared somewhere. We have another one. We've moved the schoolhouse somewhere else because that was a kind of a cursed area, and we've moved on. And that pretty much was it. Nobody really cared that this person disappeared, because, I don't know, it was upstate New York in the 1800s. People have a tendency to disappear. And he just kind of, like I said, most people realize, like, yeah, he just left town. They do that. He was a single guy who was spurned by someone he wanted to marry and went off to find better prospects in politics. Also not really uncommon. That's a whole history of school thing. But again, that's pretty much it. There's not much else to say about Sleepy Hollow. So this video is going to be very, very short. If you like this video, I have a bunch of Halloween stuff. I cover the rest. I have the rest of October. I'm covering the rest of the classics. Dracula, Frankenstein, The Phantom of the Opera, and these are my 4 major classics. And I'm covering Bunnicula, which is a children's thing. I cover a book on the Day of the Dead. I'm trying to think. A poetry book, and then I cover one Aliens. So those are the kids stuff. Plus I'm covering several films. So if you want to check out the rest of the stuff that I have going on, or that's Halloween based for October, I do have Harry Potter videos going on right now as well. That started back in September. it will finish this month, but I figured I wanted to do some Halloween stuff besides, scariness of Harry Potter. So I have some Native American stuff, including book reviews and some database reviews coming up in November. And then I have fun Christmas stuff going on in December. So, and that's just secular Christmas books and fun films. I also have a bunch of other book reviews that have come out, some travel stuff, some secular homeschooling stuff sprinkled in there. So if you want to check out the rest of that, like and subscribe, but that is it for this review. Thank you.